Good evening, all. We're gonna give people a few more minutes to join and then we will start. Hopefully not more than a minute or two. Hi, my name is Matt Mayer and I'm the chair of the 4th Congressional District. And I would like to both welcome and thank you for joining us this evening to the kickoff of our campaign training series. As Democrats, we face unprecedented challenges that require a vigorous response. We have seen that this spring and summer with large protests both state and nationwide. The next step is to challenge Republican domination by electing Democrats up and down the ballot. To that end, multiple veteran campaign officials have spent countless hours preparing this training series. I want to thank all of them for their tireless efforts. Tonight, we begin at the beginning with our orientation presented by Teresa Brandon. To moderate tonight's discussion, I'm turning it over to Keith Ribnick. Keith is a proud member of the Democratic Party and has extensive experience conducting successful webinars. Keith, thank you. Keith, you're...
Oops, I'm talking and on mute. Sorry about that, everybody. Hi. Now that you can hear me, good evening. I have a couple of quick announcements before we begin. If anyone has questions this evening, you can use the Q&A feature, which should be on your menu in the lower middle of your menu, and we will answer the questions during the presentation. This will allow us to both get through the presentation quickly and answer more questions. We will also provide a link in chat to the guide that we've developed to assist you in setting up your campaign and in filing to run as a candidate. You're going to find this very valuable. And again, that will be in our chat feature, a link to that. And finally, if anyone has questions that are not covered by the webinar, they can email Matt at chair@in4blue.com. He'll answer your questions via email after tonight's webinar. All right. Well, I'm delighted to introduce tonight's presenter, a good friend, Teresa Brandon. Teresa proudly served in the Marine Corps and later worked for the U.S. Department of Labor. She has worked in Indiana politics for several years since she retired. Teresa strongly believes in serving our country and our communities, and she has received accolades for her tireless service to others. I am proud to call her my friend and my mentor. Without further ado, let's welcome tonight's moderator, Teresa Brandon.
Well, thanks, Keith. I really appreciate that. At this point, would you be kind enough to pull up the presentation, Keith? Well, welcome, everybody. It's so nice to have you here. Those of you who are in the know and some of you who are not, under Matt's direction and leadership, we've been trying to pull together all of our Democrats and utilize the experience that we have in the field. We have hand-selected a team. We've been calling them the Special Project Group. They've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes, and I'm just so grateful to them for all their efforts in working together. First of all, the purpose of this orientation, which is what's going on tonight, is to provide an overview of the various components for anybody who's planning to run for office. We want to share the essential steps in creating a successful plan. Our goal is to provide for new candidates or anyone who's going to work on a campaign or even volunteer for a campaign, so they have a sense of what it takes to create a successful campaign. There are 5 levels, essentially, that candidates can serve at. This presentation and the training that will be following the orientation over future dates will cover the first 3 levels. I just want to note that those people who typically do 4th and 5th level have probably run at least one of their campaigns. So they're not going to be needing this kind of level of experience. The four main segments of each campaign are treasurers, campaign managers and fundraising, field directors and volunteer coordinators, communication and messaging. Keith, go on. So looking at this page here, this really shows you what the agenda is essentially. It has the essential components of a winning campaign. We start out with initial questions. Those are questions for a brand new candidate that they need to really take in and think about when they're starting to run for office. We're going to talk about general plans. Remember, this is to get people started who never had an opportunity to run a campaign before. And we don't want to just say, hey, great, good luck, we'll see you later. No, we want to give you a general plan so you know how to start your own planning process. We want to talk about campaign setup, budget and fundraising, and communications and messaging. Those are all key components of any good plan. We'll move from planning stage into setting up strategies. Those are some of the known things that we've worked on. It's not to say those are the only strategies, they're not. But this whole plan is to create a starting point for brand new people who just don't have a clue of where do I start? We don't want to leave you hanging. Next, we'll go into execution. That has to do with fundraising, accounting and reporting, events, get out the vote, the GOTV. Last, we'll talk a little bit about follow-up, measure, and reassess. There are tools out there, such as the Voters Access Network, the VAN. You'll hear people talk about that. And the people that you need to reach out to set that up for you is either your county party or the Indiana State Dems. And then final instructions. Next. So looking at the initial questions, first of all, you want to identify what position you're going to run for. All right. There are a set of what we call PDs, position descriptions, that will help you best identify what's suited for you and your interests and your strengths. For instance, some people may be very interested in running as a trustee. Others may want to choose to work on a county government, and that's going to be a little higher up the print. The next thing is state reps. They all have different requirements for the actual jobs involved, but you need to assess what it is that you have as far as strengths. As Keith mentioned a minute ago, there's a guide that you can use as a blueprint for actually setting up your campaign and filing to run as a candidate. There are many components in the initial stages of setup. We don't want you to have to struggle and have everybody struggle. We wanted to provide this in a laid out outline format. So why should you run? Well, first and foremost, we want our voters to have a candidate to vote for. Too often we've seen those Democratic positions remain vacant. And we want to make sure that they have a Democrat to vote for in 2026 and future elections. What are some of the sources of information you should be aware? Well, you need to look at what is the election year that you're looking at, perhaps calculate your win number, and how did previous Democrats perform? Well, some of that information is available through the VAN, as I mentioned, the Voter Access Network. Some of it will be available through Ballotpedia, which you can find online. And some of the other information, it may be you have to talk to previous candidates. I'm sure that the county parties will be ready and willing and able to help you with that. So right now we have assessed we have posted a poll, and I want you to quickly answer that poll if you go to there. And it's got 3 basic questions. We want to know with this audience here tonight, how many here plan to run for office? Do you know the exact position you wish to run for? And are you aware of the duties and responsibilities involved? please just take a moment and answer those questions. Thank you very much. We're going to move right into the planning portion of the campaign. It is all about the campaign setup. This is the third time you're going to hear us talk about this guy, but I got to tell you, I got to give credit to where we found this. It was in a box that I got from Linda Lassiter, the Hendricks County chair, and it was a terrific guide, but it was just a Xerox. So we typed it up. I have to give credit to Howard County Dems because it was originally done by them. We added additional components to it, including a very intense part for the treasurers. I think treasurers will really appreciate having a how-to guide in that piece. The real value of this particular guide is everybody wants to ask, what do I do first? How do I know I've done all the steps needed? It's almost like a checklist, and I think everybody could use it. You can see a little bit of the checklist here. Identifying and recruiting a treasurer, key to any campaign. Creating the campaign name, obtaining a federal tax ID number, so forth and so on, as you can see on the list here. So going to the next slide. Establishing your team. That is absolutely critical. There is no campaign that can run without people. You can have people who are executive team members, people who will help you make decisions, the candidate and or the campaign manager. Sometimes the candidate acts as the campaign manager. Again, it just depends on what level of campaign you're trying to do. You're probably going to want some members of the campaign to be the skilled personnel, director of communications, field operations volunteer coordinator, and the all critical treasurer. I know I mentioned that the candidate can perform as the campaign manager, but really, you should not operate as your own treasurer. You need to have a separate person that serves in that capacity. Did everybody get that poll taken? All right,
I
good.
think we're having some problems with the poll. It is under polls and quizzes, not Q&A. So
Okay.
look for the poll and quizzes button.
So going back to the team, the third segment are volunteers. And I got to tell you, they are absolutely valued assets. They're the people who are going to be doing phone calling for you, helping with hosting and co-hosting house parties, helping attend events, helping with mailings, helping canvassing, a whole host of things. Now, I have to tell you, when you're running a campaign, either as a candidate or a campaign manager, you need to invest your time to meet with each and every volunteer, mainly to find out what they're interested in. Not everybody is wanting to be out front and talking to people. There are some people who are rather shy. And so you want to make sure that you line them up with the kind of duties that will help you or help them to help you better. Okay. Next slide. The next thing we're going to talk about is budget and fundraising. You need to determine what tools you'll need. Promotional materials, office supplies, fundraising tools. These are all the types of things that you can do. There are more. I mean, there are so many options that you can do, but again, we're trying to get people who've never done a campaign before to get started so they know some of those basic pieces. For instance, business cards or handouts. If you have a smaller campaign, you're not going to have a huge budget, business cards might serve you quite well. If you're running for a county level or a state position, you probably should have some handouts. Those require a little more in-depth work. Yard signs, conventional wisdom, we typically do those, but I've actually heard some counter comments to that, in that those are typically not as good until the last 100 days or the last 30, 60 days of the campaign. So you may or may not want to invest money. Again, it's all about how big a budget you want to have, how much fundraising you want to do. Stamps and envelopes are always helpful, and absolutely get thank you notes. Whether you as the candidate or you have someone who's a volunteer who helps you with that, always send thank you notes. Fundraising tools, we're going to have a whole session of training on that from two experts in the field, Mary Klinkos, and of course, the wonderful Dana Black. They will be talking about those strategies using those tools. So you have to ask yourself, how much money are you going to need? Who's going to help you with the fundraising and how? Okay. You want to recruit supporters and endorsements. For instance, you're going to want some in-kind donations. Do you know a company that does printing of t-shirts? They may offer to print your first 50 t-shirts for free or at a very reduced rate, however that might look. But this is where your treasurer needs to have all that information. Next slide. The other planning session is communications and messaging. This is critical. By this point, you should have your basic team together. You need to have somebody who can handle social media for you and some people who can help you with other kinds of tools. We always break this down by internal and external. Internal communication with your staff and volunteers is absolutely critical. It can be as easy or simple or as complicated as you choose, but really it's best if you check with your folks to see where do they access most of their information. Is it via texting? Is it via emails? Will they have Facebook pages that you can set up a private volunteer page? I did that during at least a couple of campaigns that I ran and found that that was very helpful in getting information out to the entire team very quickly. It also allowed me to give good jobs by certain people who were really busting their humps trying to do certain work for the campaign. External voters, that's where we need to start getting into social media and printed materials. The messaging and communications team, which will probably present sometime in September for their webinar, they have come across and said, we need to learn to be simple and disciplined and not over promise. You need to state who you are, why you want to run, know the specific duties of the office that you're seeking, and you need to develop your stump speech and any kind of platform issues. Really need to keep it simple, keep it to no more than 3. And lastly, stay in your lane. What we talk about there is when you go out and you've got people that are trying to ask questions, don't let them derail you. You'll have some people in your audience that will try and do that, and they'll try and say, okay, well, where do you stand on 2A? Don't you believe in guns or the abortion issue? Those are federal issues. Most of you working at the state and county level will not have to deal with those topics. You may want to have a preset statement so that you can answer their question without allowing them to derail your messaging campaign. Next page. Well, let's kind of see where you're at with questions at the moment. If you have any, I hope you've been typing them into the Q&A section. Matt, are there any specific questions at this moment that we need to talk about?
Not at this moment, or not. Apparently, you've done an excellent job explaining everything so far.
Don't see any so far. That's very good. All right, thank you. So communicating with your campaign staff and support with training. We cannot assume, just like we're trying not to assume, that you know how to set up a campaign. You should not make those assumptions with your own volunteers. If you're going to have phone banking, you need to have some training on that. And again, go to your county party or come to the district party and ask us to help you with setting that up and showing people how to do it. We don't want to just be throwing people to the wolves and making assumptions. Band training is very specific, and that will come down the line. Some of you will receive support from the county for the van. Others will be required to purchase and buy into the access of the van. Next slide. Communicating with the voters can take place in any number of ways: canvassing, knocking on doors. It is always good to build your own personal list of donors and voters, have a digital campaign of some kind. But remember, when you're dealing with Facebook and social media, that does not always equal to your voters. That's your own personal circle of influence. You need to remember, you need to be able to reach out beyond your own personal Facebook through either a website. Videos are a terrific tool. Those little 30-second videos with your phone when you're out on the road or you're out doing an event or something, those are really important to share with your followers. Phone banking is also a very good tool. Next slide. Public speaking. Everybody loves to speak publicly, don't you? Not really. Okay. But you still need to do it. If you're going to run for office, you need to be prepared for 3 different types. You always need to have a stump speech. Be prepared to say who you are, how long you've lived in the community, maybe something about your family. Always talk about what office you're seeking and identify the issues which concern you that directly relate to the position you're running for. The elevator pitch is just a 30-second self-introduction. It's just really fast off the cuff. And it's very important that it be succinct. The escalator pitch follows the elevator pitch. Let's say you just got through introducing yourself with this 30-second introduction. You're in a place having coffee with a group of people, and someone says, I'm really interested or concerned about the school situation. And that happens to be one of your points. That gives you an opportunity to hone in on that one specific element and really dive into that issue. Don't lose the opportunity to ask for that person's vote and their support. Generally speaking, if they support your campaign, either financially or by volunteering, you probably have their vote. But you need to condition yourself to ask people to support you either way. Next slide. You want to explore community events. Again, working with your county party, they may set up debates, meet and greets. Your campaign may have some people that are really good at setting up house parties, and canvassing is an important piece, especially during the get out the votes segment towards the very end of the campaign, getting ready to go into the actual voting section. Roundtable discussions, these are just examples. That depends on where you live. If you live in a rural area where you have a lot of farmers, you're probably going to want to have some kind of a roundtable discussion, mainly to hear from your voters what their concerns are. If you're in a less rural area, you may have teachers that you want to reach out to, business people. Meet and greets are always very important. And there's that all important phone banking again. If you haven't gotten the hint, you need to learn about how to do those. Next slide. All right. So far, we've talked about the initial stages of setting up a campaign. We've talked about the planning segments. We've talked about campaign setup, budget and fundraising, communications and messaging. Those are all very critical steps. But we have to change our view from just the planning into the strategy. The very first one is looking at maps and who your voters are. I typically look for, especially on Ballotpedia, what is the official map of the territory that you're going to operate. You need to remember that in 2022, there were a lot of gerrymandered areas, territories that got switched. In fact, I was looking at one today for House District 57. They totally flipped that entire map. It was the previous people who had that representative no longer did. It was a whole new area. So you need to make sure you have the most current map that you can find that is from 2022 and on. You want to look at the primary and start looking at what are the big metropolitan cities of your territory. You may just live in a township and it's not going to be cities and towns and, states and counties. It just depends. But you always start with the big picture of the map, and then you start narrowing it down by smaller components. You definitely want to gather population numbers. How many voters showed up in the last 2, 3, 4 elections? You need to get to know your population and number of voters, get to know your territory. Again, looking at the voters themselves, you need to identify demographics. Do you have a particular demographic that's in your area, like up in Cass County? They typically have Hispanic folks up there. Do we have that in this area in the county that you're looking to run? You look at voting records, registration status, any kind of hotspots. I think as we get close to 2026, we're all going to be hearing about the Medicare debacle that just took place with the big ugly bill and healthcare concerns for the lack of hospitals and EMT services, especially in the rural areas. Next. The next strategy, creating a layered and targeted calendar of events. So again, you start with the big picture. Create a calendar that has all the known events such as holidays, such as in your community. Do you have like a strawberry festival coming up? Do you have the state fair coming up or the county fair coming up? You want to put all those big things in there. Then start looking at individual groups and getting that information on there. You have to be able to plan ahead for your candidate to be able to go to events so people get to know them. Target it. What I mean by that is actually aligning a specific event, such as in Earth Day, with environmental issues, such as green technologies. That may not be something that someone at the township or the county level, but certainly someone who's at a state level or even a congressional level, they're going to be looking at that. And so that's just another way to get your name out there and associate it with specific issues that you're trying to cover. Creating a calendar also should be centered around main events as well as overlapping those scheduled events. Let me give you an example. You have a candidate that's going to drive from one town over to another area. You want to make sure that there's at least 2 events on that same day, because what if they get there and it's been canceled? You don't want them to have spent the money and the gas and the time to go somewhere and have nothing to do. So you need to look at the last minute changes and if they get canceled, so you need to plan otherwise. We also found this with events where we want to have something that's coming up in the future. In fact, let me go to the next slide. Okay, we'll cover that in a minute. But I did this with Dr. Karen Whitney's campaign. We were looking at a Strawberry Festival event in Crawfordsville. And so 2 weeks beforehand, we sent out a bunch of postcards to the voters in that area. Then 1 week before that event, we did phone banking, there that is again, to those people that we sent the postcards. Hey, did you get the postcard? We want to make sure you know that Karen's going to be at this event, or my candidate's going to be at such and such event. It's doing that outreach. You can do advertisement in the local paper. You can do social media push out, but you want to layer those things so that you have this continuous flow of information about your candidate going on out there. The third strategy, which you see before you, is absentee and early voting. We're not going to get into the details of this tonight because it's too complex, but I do want you to write it down as a candidate. These are things that you need to think about. It's a very specific process of contacting people after they have requested an absentee ballot. It's very important to do that. Next slide. All right. So before we go on to that, I just once again, I want to remind you, if you have any questions, make sure you point those out so that Matt can share those. Once you have your campaign up and running during the primary and definitely for the general cycle, that early voting and absentee voting are really critical at those points. All right. So far, we've talked about planning and strategies. The bulk of any campaign decisions fall in those categories. The next big heavy piece is fundraising. That's a lot of heavy lifting. And we will have, as I mentioned earlier, very specific training for that. Fundraising is a mainstay of survival for any and all campaigns. You need to make sure that you're working directly in concert with your treasurer. They need to be able to record certain specific information from every donation made. And you need to clearly identify who in your campaign is going to be able to accept donations. Don't just have somebody offer you cash and walk away. You can't do that. You have to report and record every donation made to your campaign. Signage at events really should spell out who to make their checks payable to. What is the entity that they need to literally write? You don't want them just writing it to your name. That will get you in hot water as well. Those donations you also need to mention are not tax deductible. All right. There are going to be other details that you're going to want to know, but that treasurer will have training to go through, and the guide will also spell that out for them as well. Where's fundraising going to take place? It's going to be in person. You're going to make some phone calls. You're going to send emails. You're going to do Facebooks. You're going to do a whole slew of things, formal letters. You're going to hopefully have some kind of support from the local county. Next slide. Executing, accounting and reporting. All income and expense statements or payments must go through your treasurer, because that's the only way you're going to assure that they're going to have accurate record keeping. One of the things that the treasurer team has told me is redundancy must be built into your campaign. In other words, the candidate who is responsible for everything, whether your treasurer is there or not, if they get hit in a car accident and they can't show you where everything is, you need to set up a process where they share copies of reports with you so you can go ahead and go forward with the reporting. There is no get out of jail free card on this. I cannot stress that enough. The candidate, and that's why I think you should have a separate treasurer. Do not do your own treasurer stuff. The treasurer has to set up a system to track donor information involved in contributions. And you, candidate, you need to make sure that they're following the deadlines reported by the state. That is critical. I always like to do reminders. Usually if you've got a good treasurer, they're going to know that in advance, or you will have talked your way through it. But you can't make assumptions. Next slide. Execute, follow up, measure, and reassess. Follow up continuously. The easiest and most effective way is thank you, thank you, thank you to your internal staff and to all the donors, whether that's a quick thank you note or a formalized letter that you choose to send out. They all should have your signature in ink. Don't just do a stamp. Never do that. You want to measure analytics monthly. Social media has some measures there you can check on. The Voter Access Network also has measurements, like for the phone banking. See, I might be being a broken record here, but really it's very critical. You don't want to assume that things are happening. You have to have ways of measuring it. At the end of the day, when all the votes are counted, you got to know, or you should know, what got us here. Did we win or not win in spite of ourselves or because of what we did? You're going to establish canvassing goals and fundraising goals as well. Anything and everything that you can measure, you're going to want to do. Next slide. So what additional questions come to your mind? Remember, this was just an orientation to give you an overview about setting up a campaign and letting you know that we have those 4 main areas that will be covered in actual training. As you can see, we'll have webinars on treasurers, campaign managers and fundraising, field directors and volunteer coordinators, communication and messaging. And then you'll also have the guide. We've got subject matter experts that certainly can help. Just ask if you need help. Don't assume that it's all on your back. We want to support our candidates going forward. And we also want to support your campaign staff in as much as we can. It is really important to be not just leave people hanging. Next slide. So we want to welcome any kind of feedback for this presentation or any future presentations. Those can be sent, as Keith said earlier, sent to Matt at chair@indiana or in4blue.com. We want to thank you not only for your attendance this evening, but for your interest in running for office as a Democrat. Thank you very much. We can now go back to the audience and see if there's any other questions we can answer.
We do have two questions. The first question is from Kay Whetstone. It's a great question. I keep seeing house parties being referenced.
Yeah.
Love this, but I've never seen a house party in this context. What do these parties look like? Is the candidate expected to host or be a guest?
That's a great question. House parties are good in a community where you have some pretty close relationships. So in the house parties that we've had, I typically suggest you have co-hosts, because a lot of people are a little bit antsy about inviting people into their home. But if you have two people that are doing it together, you can have someone who said, hey, I work all day, but I've got a great location in my house. I've got plenty of chairs, plenty of space to invite people in. You may have a co-host who says, I don't have such a good place, but I'm willing to bake the cookies and make the coffee and the tea or whatever. And they work together, creating the invitation list of people that they know in their neighborhood and their community that they feel comfortable inviting into their home. The host is responsible for introducing the candidate, because after all, that's their home. And they want to make it clear to these people that this is their opportunity to get to talk to this candidate who may be their future representative. So we want to also put out the fact that they're looking for their support in terms of money, volunteerism, and absolutely their vote. Did that answer the question?
I'd also pitch in that sometimes you can find public spaces to use for house parties. We have a lawyer in Logansport who's an art collector, and his collection is so extensive that it has spilled out of his house into his law office. And his law office has always been a great location to have house parties, or as we
cool.
call them locally, wine and cheese events. It's a very successful model. The other question we have is from Melinda Lassiter. You might have met her. If you are a first-time candidate, how do you find out how much money it will take to fund your campaign?
That's a great question. That's going to depend on a couple of different things. It depends on the level of the candidacy that you're going to be doing. If you're running for state rep, you need a bunch of money. And I'm not going to give you an actual number because there is no way for me to predict that based on all the positions. But a good place to go is a previous candidate or two and just get their input. You can also make like a shopping list for yourself. Say, okay, I think I'm going to need 200 thank you cards. So I'm going to need 200 stamps. I'm going to need to do social media, and we may want to do some Facebook ads. Check that out. How much does that cost? Just kind of create a shopping list for yourself and do some guesstimates, rough guesstimates. That would be my best advice. Do you have anything else on that, Matt?
I think it's a good point. I think that is probably something that over the winter the district could work on trying to put together, is probably not necessarily how much you should budget for any specific campaign, but more of a, here's how much Facebook costs to advertise with. This is what you should expect to pay for yard signs, that sort of thing. I think that's something the district will work on over the winter, so that come spring we can provide people with that. But I suppose in the end, your budget is always probably what you can raise.
Mhm.
You know,
I've seen that with campaigns I've run before too. You plan ahead, you move forward with those plans, always checking the budget. And are we going to be able to cover what we had planned? It's no different than your own household. You're taking in money, you're going to be putting money out. I don't mean to make it over simplistic, but I think just getting an idea of what are some of the things, business cards are going to do, copying of literature, a whole slew of things. We did provide some of that in the earlier part of the orientation, some of the considerations. Any other questions come to mind?
we had a good comment from Erica, our district vice chair, who's doing a great job. She pointed out that you can use the Secretary of State's website to see how much previous candidates have raised in past elections, because those filings are online. So I will say some local offices will be filed at your county clerk's office, but either way, a little bit of detective work, and you can usually look and see what successful candidates have raised for those campaigns before.
Mhm.
Teresia says campaign costs. Look at the campaign finance reports for the incumbents and our previous candidates. High level reports of how much they raise and spend.
Excellent.
And always look at both sides and maybe look at multiple years, because the amount of money you'll raise in a presidential election and the amount of money you'll raise in an off-year election, the amount of money you can expect to raise in a municipal election can really vary.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any other questions or statements?
No, we don't have any more right now. So I
Um,
have emailed out the guide. It turns out there's not a chat feature. I probably need to learn how to use Zoom better. But I went ahead and emailed it to everyone. And we did have a question about the slides. We can send out the slides to the presentation after the fact. And we will be making the recording available to the county parties. We'll be using the district's intranet, so the county chairs and vice chairs will have access to that. We are also launching a YouTube space for the district in 4Blue Pod. We will make this meeting available on that YouTube page. Again, that's in 4Blue Pod. We will not be making all of these recordings available. We've had a few presenters who have compliance reasons to not make that public. So we will make what we can available on the YouTube space, but everything will be on the district intranet, and so the county parties will have access there.
I do want to take just a moment to recognize the people who've been working on this team, who you will see those future webinars, and we will be announcing those on the district Facebook, and I'll probably share those as well. I want to recognize Tim Anderson, and these are in alphabetical order, so nobody gets preferential treatment. But we've got Tim Anderson, Peggy Apple, Dana Black, Ann Buja, Kathy Gross, Mary Klinkos, Joe Mackey, Mike Oles, Kristen Self, Teresia Shera, and Margaret Wielenberg. We're very, very appreciative of all the time and effort that they've been putting into this. This was just the orientation tonight, just to give you an overview. They will all dive much deeper into each of those subject matters. So you'll get much more information in the future webinars. We certainly appreciate everyone's attention tonight, and especially those new candidates. If you're not running for a candidate position, I hope you're thinking about joining them to help with the campaign staff and volunteers. I will continue to sing that song until the cows come home. Thanks, man.
Thank you. To get back to that poll, 16 of you answered, and 2 of you said you are thinking about running for office. So I want to thank the 2 of you that are thinking about running for office. I, like Teresa, hope the other 14 of you are thinking about getting involved in campaigns. Either way, I want to thank you for your time, your effort, and your dedication, because I think we're all here because we know just how bad things have gotten, both in Indiana and in this country. and that it is critical that this election, we have significant progress. I think we all know how dire things will be if we don't. So I really appreciate you taking the time tonight to meet with us, to listen to Teresa, her great presentation. This is just the beginning. The quality of presentations we have coming up is going to blow you away. It really is. It's really, really high quality stuff from people who have been doing this for a long time. And so they have a lot to share, and I think it'll be really valuable. So I hope to see you all. I believe it's the 18th is our next one.
I believe that is correct. Yes. The next one is going to be on August the 18th. But we'll be sharing that out there so you can all catch up with that then. Thank you all.
All right. Thank you, Keith, as well. You have any parting comments?
It's a pleasure to be with you, and it really makes me feel good to know all of this is happening to change things in a positive direction. So thank you for your efforts and for letting me be a part of this effort. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you all. Enjoy your evening.
Good night.
Good night. Take care.